Very much changed. I've been in Aleppo these days, and I've seen for the first time an Aleppo completely free from war, completely liberated, where people are coming back to the life. You have all the ruins, of course, still there, but you see that the city of Aleppo is coming back to life, and this is really something different from what I saw in 2012, in 2015, 2016, in the hard days of the war. And in Damascus also, things are changing quite fast. I mean, in Ghouta.
Changing in what sense?
In what sense? Because I mean, since when I was in the previous years, when I was there, I mean, if you had the impression that the war was coming inside Damascus, to be on the front line. If you go in some part of Damascus, but like Abbasid Square, you were on the front line. Now still, the front line is still there. Bombs are still falling on Aleppo, are still killing people in the street. But you have the impression that the rebels are going back, are retreating, are withdrawing. Yeah, and their situation is really deteriorating. It seems that they don't have the support of the population anymore.
Now, I would appreciate, since you've been in Syria at the beginning of the conflict and up till today, tell us more about your experience, Gian, in the sense you've been to Palmyra, you've been to Qamishli, you've been to Ghouta, Homs, Deir ez-Zor, Afrin also recently. Tell us more about this unique experience you had. You never left Syria. You were always there from the inside. How did you manage to get your information? Who were your resources in this sense?
Well, usually when, as you know, as a journalist, you try to speak to the people to understand the situation and to go in where the things happening. So but I mean, the Syrian conflict for someone coming from Europe was very difficult to understand when I arrived for the first time in 2012, because I mean, I'm covering different wars since 1983. And I'd never discovered that there was a war where you have all the bad people from one side and the good people from the other side. But the picture that we had in 2012 in Europe was exactly that. That you have all the good people from one side, and the good people were the rebels, so-called fighters for democracy and freedom. And from the other side, you have only one bad people, that was Bashar Assad and his regime. And this picture seemed very strange to me. Also because, I mean, we completely forgot the Christians. We Europeans are mostly Christians, but we forgot to speak about Christianity and an important minority in Syria. So, I mean, what I wanted to understand is, but it was really true that the Bashar Assad and the regime was completely bad, and was really true that all the rebels were really good
and looking for democracy
and fighting for democracy, fighting for freedom. And I decided to investigate about this. And the strange story that I learned as soon as I arrived in Syria was the story that one Christian priest told me. He said, you think that all the rebels are good? They arrived in my village. The soldiers surrendered. 80 soldiers surrendered, and they killed everyone, and they cut their heads. And I said, my God, how is possible? I mean, this guy is telling me a story that we never heard in Europe. How is possible that no one spoke about this?
Exactly.
So I went to investigate and try to understand. I saw and I discovered that the picture was not so black and white, that you didn't have all the good from one side and all the bad from the other side, and that probably the regime was not so bad as we thought. And so this was my way of...
So you talked, Gian, to the people, to the common people, to the common Syrians who were there dwelling in their villages despite of the siege and the fighting and the clashes. They were there and they told you the stories.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like an official source in the government of the president and so on and so forth.
Well, in my professional life, I never went only to official sources. I mean, I always tried to speak to the people, to try to speak to the army, to the soldiers. It was very important to stay with the soldiers. First time that I went to Aleppo, I joined the soldiers, even if I didn't have the authorization, because I want to understand who were these soldiers accused of killing the people. And I discovered, for example, that many, we had a strange picture of the war. Another strange picture of the war was that the majority of the Sunni people were fighting against the minority of Alawi people that were part of the regime. In the army, you had a lot of Sunni people fighting with the regime. So also this didn't fit in the picture that we were telling in Europe. I went to Aleppo with the soldiers and speaking to them, and I discovered that many of them were Sunni, and they were fighting for the regime because they said that the regime was very important to keep order and to keep stability, and that the rebels...
It was a secular regime after all. It still is a secular regime.
This was the same things that the Christians were saying. I mean, the regime defended in all these years. I mean, gave us the possibility to practice our religion, and it was tolerant with us. So I mean,
which place, Gian, strike you the most? Which area you were covering?
What struck me mostly was Malula in 2013. You know, I came there in 2015 just after the attack, the so-called chemical attack to Ghouta. We still don't know who made that chemical attack, but I mean, in those days, in August and beginning of September 2013, everything seems clear. The Americans, Europe accused the Bashar Assad regime. They said that they were guilty, and so they were thinking to attack because they said they overpassed the red line. So we are going to attack the regime and probably to bomb. So I was here just waiting for that. When, in the beginning of September, I start to hear some rumors coming from north of Damascus. Malula and all the Christian city attack
was under siege by Jabhat al-Nusra then.
Malula and all the Christian city was under siege by Jabhat al-Nusra.
Al-Qaeda.
Yes. And I said, oh my God, but this is strange. I mean, America is waiting to attack Syria and is not doing anything while Al-Qaeda is attacking the Christian. The same Al-Qaeda that destroyed the Twin Towers in New York. I mean, I said, something strange is going on. It's not possible. I mean, and I went there and I discovered that it was completely true. While everyone was waiting the attack of the United States
on Damascus, yes.
On Damascus, I mean, Al-Qaeda was acting freely and attacking the Christians in Malula. And I said, I mean, probably we didn't understand too much this war. I mean, probably we are telling a story that is not true in Europe. Probably we lost, I mean, completely any reality.
Yes, you lost the compass when it comes also to
we lost the compass. This is the real, the right. And I remember that I was coming back one night.
You were the first one to get into the monastery in Martaqla. Yes.
I succeeded to. I was the first and the last one because after that no one could have access to that convent, and we were surrounded while we were in the convent, and we managed to escape that night. And I never forgot. I mean, that night we arrived in the Malula. Malula was completely desert because I mean no one was there anymore. Just one old people, and he asked me, "But who are you?" He said to me, and I said, "I'm European. I'm Italian. I'm a Christian like you." "Oh my God," he said, "I'm so sad for you, because we, the Christians from Syria, will be all killed probably. But at least we will know why they kill us. But you, European, will be killed like us in the future. But they will never know why they killed you." And 1 year later, 2 years later, in 2015, when they attacked Paris, I discovered that it was quite right.
Yes, because it fired back.
Yeah,
all what
fired back to us.
What is happening in Syria, it's always firing back in Europe. And now allow me to stop you, Gian. for a short break, and then afterwards we're going to talk about your book, The Betrayed Brothers. We're going to talk about the details, the message, and how you managed to gather the information for this book that, you know, also focuses and sheds light on the persecuted Christian communities in Syria and elsewhere in the region. But after the break. إذا فاصل قصير ونعود. لا تذهبوا بعيد. كتاب جان ميكاليسن الأخير خيانة الإخوة يتحدث عن الوجود المسيحي في سوريا ويكسر الصمت حيال اضطهاد المسيحيين من قبل المجموعات المسلحة الإرهابية. جان كيف انطلق في رحلة البحث والتوثيق تلك؟
As I told you, I mean, when first time that I went to Syria in 2012, I was trying to find a way to tell this conflict, a different way. And I was surprised. I was surprised because no one in Europe spoke about the Christian. I said to myself, how is it possible? I mean, Christianity was born in Damascus, in Syria.
It's the cradle of Christianity.
And from Syria, Christianity arrived to Turkey and later on in Europe. And if you have democracy, if you have liberal ideas, one of the reasons is because Christianity arrived to us from Syria. How is it possible that we forgot completely the Christians? How is it possible that we speak just about the regime, we speak just about the rebels, and we don't even think what the Christian says?
And there was a dramatic change in the Italian stance vis-à-vis Syria and the government in Syria.
It was a terrific, dramatic change because when our president Napolitano came here in 2010,
he honored the government.
He
honored Bashar al-Assad. Yes,
he met Bashar al-Assad. He said that Bashar al-Assad was one great leader that was defending the Christians, and so
after the conflict, he's the monster.
Just 3 years after, in 2012, 2013, he was a monster. He was the devil. So it was very strange. Something didn't work in this.
Exactly. There's a missing link in this issue.
Well, something wrong. I mean,
yes.
Completely, definitely.
Yes.
And so, because of this, I decided to speak about the Christians. And when I went to Aleppo, when I went to all the places where you had the
Christian
bishop, the Christian community, all the Christians were saying the same. I mean, we are not pro-regime, but regime is defending us. And those people that are coming here telling you that they are taking the freedom are killing us. So with whom we should stay? With someone that wants to kill us or with someone that is protecting us? So we decided to stay with the regime, because they protect us and the other people that you call fighter for the freedom, freedom fighters are killing us. So we don't have any choice. We have to stay with the regime.
And you say something in your book that the Christians of Syria, as witnessed by your book, are the first to denounce the so-called revolution, the first to recount the deeds and massacres carried out by these armed groups and formations, but they are neither heard nor believed. Why were both Europe and the Vatican, both of them, not just one side, impotent to find a political approach to protect these Christian communities? Again, why and how has the West turned its back on the Christians in Syria?
Well, if I think into the European states, I think that they didn't want to hear the voice of the Christians. They didn't want to hear the voice of the Christian because the story that the Christians were telling in those years was completely different
from the narrative they want.
From the narrative that the mainstream
media was
us.
Promoting.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This was
so they wanted to sacrifice those Christians?
They were not, they want to sacrifice. Yeah, they decided to sacrifice, to turn their back to this Christian because they were not useful for the political objective that they wanted. The political objective of Europe and, of course, of the United States. The European Union was not having any precise idea. They were just following the United States and Obama policy in those years. And the target was to change the regime. This was the target. So if to reach this target, you can also sacrifice the Christians, forget their voices. And the Vatican itself was confused, because it was getting so different voices, so different telling. I mean, the people. I mean,
different stories coming.
Different stories from Lebanon, from Jordania, from Turkey, and also the Vatican probably has not the courage to go against the mainstream.
Yes. Why? You know, the persecution of the Christians didn't find its way or occupy even a little bit of the mainstream media, the mainstream narrative, for example, the opinion and the counter-opinion, for example, of those communities.
Well, you know, one of the main reasons...
I mean, this is why you called, I think, your book The Betrayed Brothers, because you believe that by turning your back on those Christian communities, you have betrayed them. You have betrayed your own culture.
And it was the same things that many priests told me. They say to me, we have been betrayed, forgotten from your country, from the Christian from Europe.
Gian, one of the observers, they've noted that Gian Micalessin, you have made a difference through your reporting, and by inviting also some people from Syria to go to Italy and to talk about their experiences, there was a kind of exchange. Did you manage to make a certain kind of change? To what extent was this change in the public opinion in Italy vis-à-vis the Syrian conflict?
I think that not at the very beginning. At the very beginning was in 2012, after my first trip. It was very, very difficult. I mean, I was attacked many times when I tried to give a different picture of what was happening in Syria. But I mean, the real turning point was Malula. When I show Malula under the attack of Al-Qaeda, when I show those noons siege in the convent, when I show the picture of a Christian fleeing from Malula and the Jabhat al-Nusra having the control of this city completely empty, okay, also the people in Europe, in Italy, they understood. I mean, something is wrong. How is it possible that we call freedom fighters the people that are coming to kill the Christian, the people that have a flag of Al-Qaeda? So, I mean, that time, yes, my report changed something.
That's very good, that's very good. Now, do you believe that Syria will be the battleground for an all-out war between Russia and the US sometime soon? Perhaps?
I'm very scared about this. I'm afraid that could happen, I mean, because, I mean, we don't have a clear politics, we don't have a clear vision, we don't have a clear negotiate, and we have many armies on the same terrain.
Yes.
You need just a small mistake now in order to...
A pretext, perhaps.
A mistake or a pretext. I mean, but I mean, the risk is real. I mean, the real risk is that after finishing this war, after finishing the threat of Daesh, after finishing the threat of the rebels, you have a new conflict, much more dangerous and much more bloody.
Now, why has Afrin fallen?
Why Afrin fallen? This is a very good question.
And what next?
What is very strange is that when I went to Afrin trying to enter, what I noticed that there was no fighting at all. In the last 3 days, the Kurds were not fighting at all. I think the Kurds made a big mistake, and they realized only at the end the mistake that they made. I think,
which is?
Well, when I mean at the end of November, beginning of December, the Russian and the Syrian army ended up the liberation of area around Deir el-Zor. They offered to the Kurds the possibility to come back to have a sort of alliance of autonomy in the area controlled by the government as Afrin, and the Kurds say no because they trust the Americans.
The Americans, and they refuse to ally with the government.
Yeah, and the Russians say, okay, friend, goodbye. Make by yourself. As a matter of fact, when the Turkish started the offensive, the Russian went out from Afrin, left the Kurds alone. I think the Kurds, unfortunately, they made the same mistake that they made in all their history. They trusted too much in themselves, and they thought that they could cheat all the others. But at the end, they were cheated themselves.
And what do you think is the next step for Afrin?
For Afrin, it's a very difficult situation. Also because, I mean, in Afrin you have some groups, apart from the Turkish army, that are the former rebels, former people from Daesh,
جيش الحر.
Former people from Jabhat al-Nusra, I mean, fighting now under the flag of
the Turks.
Of the Turks. But the main point will be if the Turks continue the offensive, if they try to conquer also the area east of Euphrates, and so that will be the turning point. I mean, because you have to see what the Americans do, and if the Americans go back, they will lose credibility again, and to lose credibility with the Kurds will mean to lose the only ally that they have in Syria. So this is what the Russians is focusing on and paying a lot of attention.
From Italy, Gian Micalessin, journalist, war correspondent since 1983 and leading expert in the Middle East. Many thanks indeed for joining us, sir.
Many thanks to you. Thank you.
Always welcome, sir. إذا لقاء جديد في الأسبوع المقبل.